The tribulation period is an awful time of God's judgment on the earth. It will be tremendous bloodshed, evil, and wickedness that will be going on. There will be, as we saw in chapter 13, a one-world government headed by the Antichrist, where people won't be able to buy or sell anything unless they have the mark of the beast on their right hand or on their forehead. And that mark, the word means tattoo. So we are seeing today how people are making a fashion out of tattoos, which will make them more accepting of the mark. Yet during the tribulation period, there is a religious component to it. You see, ladies and gentlemen, everybody is religious. Every religion don't worship God, but everybody is religious, including Satan himself. Satan has always desired for people to worship him. That is still his desire, is for people to worship him. Revelation chapter 17 talks about a one-world church that will arise at the beginning of the tribulation period. Now, why is this entity arising? It's going to arise because man has to worship something. We can worship our jobs, we can worship our cars, our homes, our spouses, our children. Any and everything that we can worship other than God. And certainly mankind is doing so. That's why Karl Marx says religion is the opiate of the people. People get drugged up off religion. And we're seeing today in America particularly that churches are no longer feasible to millennials. They are leaving the church in droves. But yeah, I said man is a religious being, so they got to worship something. So many millennials, even though they're leaving the church, they're going into atheism. The belief that there is no God. And when a person says there is no God, they're making an absolute statement, which means they have taken the place of God because they can absolutely say there is no God. And so man begins to worship ideas, philosophies, and religion. John tells us in chapter 17 about the scarlet beast and the woman. He says in verse 1, then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, come and I will show you the judgment, of the great harlot, or the great whore, who sits on many waters. Now, what in the world is John talking about? Well, when you look down at verse 15, he gives you the interpretation of what he's telling you. He says to me, the waters which you saw where the harlot sits are the peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. He said, I'm going to show you, verse 1 again, the judgment of the great whore who sits on many waters. This great whore is a spiritual adulteress. This is a religious system that's going to lead people away from the worship of the true God. And notice now, the true church is already gone. And so the false church is going to rise, and guess what? People are going to embrace the false church who have already rejected the true church. She's sitting, that's her vocation. She's sitting in a seat of authority. In other words, she's over the people, tongues, and nations. So the peoples, tongues, and nations of the world are going to bow down to what she says spiritually. And they're going to embrace the teachings that she espouses. Then she says this, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the water, inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Not only are the people, tongues, and nations is going to embrace her, she's saying political leaders are going to embrace her. She's saying those in political power, kings and presidents, prime ministers, whatever those nations' head of state is called, they are going to embrace this woman because she's saying whatever they want to hear. That's why Paul would tell us the day is going to come, even today, when people are not going to put up with sound doctrine. And we are living in a time today, right now, in America, on January the 7th, 2018, right here in the Church of Jesus Christ, people don't want sound doctrine. It's repugnant to them. Why is that true? Because people want a religion that makes them feel good. And if I didn't feel good at church today, then we didn't have church. Because I came to feel good. I didn't come to learn anything. Don't teach me, preacher. Make me feel. That's why we are. That's why God said, my people destroy for lack of knowledge. And most Christians will flunk God's Bible course. Because if you don't show up for class, you flunk the class. And notice, the kings and inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. In other words, she's going to have the trimmings and trappings of religion. She's going to have the view, if it feels good, do it. It's your thing. Do what you want to do. It ain't going to quote the rest. Well, some of y'all remember them old songs. Her job is to intoxicate. Intoxicate the political powers that be. Intoxicate the peoples of the world with a spirituality that's devoid of God, the true God. Think about all the religions I had today. Scientology. And those people are drunk with the intoxication of that stuff. Think about it. Some of these other isms out here today, but people are drunk with the wine of that false teaching. And they love it. And they defend it. So in the future, here this woman is. She's going to make the inhabitants of the earth drunk with the wine of her intoxication. So she carried me away. He carried me away in the spirit, that is, into the wilderness. And I saw a woman. Interesting. Why a woman? Why a woman? Well, he's going to tell you a little bit why a little bit later on. But it's nothing bad. It's just why a woman. Because the true church is a woman. She's called the bride of Christ. Isn't she? So this is going to be the counterfeit. Because listen, when you give up the genuine, you got to fill it with something. So here's this woman. She's a woman, notice, sitting on a scarlet beast, which were full of the names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Here this woman is. Notice now, the woman is sitting on the beast. In other words, the beast in the first 3.5 years of the tribulation period is getting his religious teachings and influence from this one world church. She's in control of the beast. And notice it was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The 10 horns are future 10 nations that's going to come about in the future. That's going to really install the beast as king of the earth. And the woman, notice her appeal. She was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a cup full of blasphemies and filthiness of her fornication. Notice she got the trimmings and trappings of something wonderful. You see, ladies and gentlemen, understand this. All false teaching, if you don't know the genuine, true teaching, is appealing. It appeals to the flesh. When someone tells you got to do this and do that to get to heaven, that's false religion. That's appealing. So how do you know? Try to talk to some of your relatives about that you could be saved simply by trusting Christ as Savior and see what they tell you. They're going to say, no, you just can't do it that way. You got to do something. You know why? They get it from their pulpits. Whenever somebody says you got to do something other than believe to be saved, that's false teaching. So why don't man just, if it's free, why don't they embrace it? Because the Bible said the cross is a stumbling block. See, man only feels good when man can do something to accomplish something where he can get a pat on the back. And God said, you ain't getting to heaven with a pat on the back, my son. If you're going to come in here with me, you got to embrace it the way I said come. This woman, she's adorned. No, she's decked out. She's appealing to people. Purple and scarlet. She even got a gold cup in her hand. And why a gold cup? Because it looks like it's something wonderful. But then John says, the outside of the cup looks good, but look what's on the inside of the cup. Let me say this to us black people. I'm black, you black. So I can say this to us black folk. Stop looking at the trimmings and trappings of the outside of the church and find out what's going on the inside of the church. We'll give up sound doctrine just to belong to a church that'll teach false teaching because it looks good. There are many wonderful churches out here in Macon, Georgia. Some of them don't have church buildings. But you can't get a Negro to go to a storefront church long. They won't even invite their relatives. Where you go to church? Well, we had a storefront. Storefront. And some of the best teaching can go on in that storefront. But we so caught up with how things look on the outside. And that's the devil's appeal to it. That's why turn to 1 John chapter 2, verse 17. I got to finish this thing today. I won't finish it too in a little bit, so I'm going to have to skip around. He says, stop loving the world. Verse 15. If any man loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. He says, stop. Do not with me. Stop loving the world. Notice, you see the word world there? It's the word cosmos, which means to be attractive. You see, Satan, ladies and gentlemen, listen very carefully. Satan will never come to you with something that's unattractive. He's going to always come to you with that which is attractive to lure you and me away from the true teachings of God's word. And notice this woman has a cup that's full of abominations and fornications and everything, and on her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots. That's why she's a woman. She's going to have children. She is the source. She's the fountain of all false religion that started in the Old Testament. When you see all these false teachings out here, all these different false sects, it's one of her children. It's a mystery, Babylon the Great. It's a mystery. Mystery means secret. He's trying to tell you something. He's not talking about Babylon in Iraq, because that's where Babylon was, in Iraq. He's saying mystery Babylon. It's symbolic. Then where is the Babylon he talks about? Write down 1 Peter 5:13. 1 Peter 5:13. Let me read it to you. This is Peter's farewell address. He said, I'm sending this letter by Silvanus, verse 12, our faithful brother, as I consider him. I have written to you briefly, exhorting and testifying that this is true grace of God, which you stand. She was in Babylon, elect together with you, greets you, my son. So does Mark, my son. Talking about Rome. No, he's not talking about the Roman Catholic Church. I don't think he's talking about that. But he's talking about the city of Rome. Why the city of Rome? Because see, Rome has brought together the church and the state into one unit. Yes. And she's the mother of all harlots. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints, with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. She's not going to put up with anybody who embraces anything other than what she teaches. And there's going to be some Christians, people who get saved during the tribulation period, then they're going to embrace her doctrine, then they're going to embrace her teaching, and guess what she's going to do to them? She's going to kill them. And John said, I marvel with great amazement. But the angel said to me, why do you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman, the seven beasts, and of the seven of the beast that carries her, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast which you saw was and is not, and will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. You see that? You're talking about the beast that came out of the sea in Revelation chapter 13, the Antichrist. Okay? What he's trying to tell you is this, is that the Antichrist is a son of hell. And the beast who you saw and is not, and will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. Because at the middle of the tribulation period, the Antichrist, the Antichrist is going to turn on Israel and turn on those believers, and he's going to set up the mark of the beast, and he's going to kill everybody that don't accept the mark of the beast. And those who dwell on the earth will marvel Notice whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they see the beast that was and is not and yet is. John, what are you talking about? The beast whom you saw, who was, is not, and yet is. He was, that's the Antichrist, came on the scene. It revealed after the church is gone. At the end of the tribulation period, he's going to suffer a deadly wound. He's going to die. He's going to lay in the street. And Satan's going to resurrect him. So he was, is not, he died, and resurrected, yet he is. Then he says, notice verse 9, here's the mind, here's the wisdom, here's the interpretation. Are you ready for it? Here's the mind which has the wisdom. The 7 hills are 7 mountains on which a woman sits. Listen, ancient Babylon don't have 7 hills or 7 mountains. Rome does. There are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen. One is, and the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short time. The 5 fallen kings, write this down. Number 1, Egypt. Number 2, Assyria. ASS, Assyria. Number 3, Babylon. Number 4, Persia. Number 5, Greece. These ancient empires have gone off the scene. But there's going to be a revival. So when the Antichrist comes, he's going to set up his own kingdom. They're going to continue. And notice he must continue a short time. That's why Matthew tells us that God said, listen, if I didn't shorten the tribulation period to 7 years, no flesh will survive. So God, in his punishment of man, is still being gracious by shortening the period to 7 years instead of 7.5. And the beast that was and is not is himself also of the 8th. Because again, he died and rose again. And he is of the 7th. He's going to go into what? Perdition. In the hell. And the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as yet. But they will receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast. So as this 10-nation federation, some people call it the United States of Europe. We don't know who they are. Some thought it was the United Nations. It'd be something similar to the United Nations. But these 10 nations will be aligned with the Antichrist in the future. And these are the 10 toes of Daniel in Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. And they reign with the king. They receive authority for a short time with the beast. And these are one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. So here it is, these 10 nations, these global nations, who will be representatives of all the people of the world, they will give their authority and power to the beast. Why? Why do they do that? Because man, listen very carefully, man has been, still is, hoping for some man to come on the scene that can rule the world and solve all the world's problems. And this man's going to appear as though he's going to do it. Because in a short time when he comes on the scene, there's going to be peace and prosperity, and there's going to be a lot of wonderful things happening. But Paul says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, when people are saying peace and safety, sudden destruction is going to come upon them. Yeah, it ain't going to last, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, if you don't have the peace of God and the peace of God, your peace don't last. is short-lived. It won't last long at all. Because it's a false peace. Oh, yeah, you can come to church, get happy, and feel good. But what you going to do when you go outside that door? What are you going to do when you get in your car and go home? Is that same peace you got at church going to last at the house? You ain't got no peace with God. You ain't going to have nothing at the house either. But Jesus said, my peace I give to you. Not as the world give it, give I unto you. When there are too many peaceless Christians, they can't sleep at night, worried about this, worried about that. Some of y'all worried about who's going to win tomorrow night, Georgia? Yeah, Georgia going to win tomorrow night. Yeah, don't stop worrying. Yeah, the Dog's going to win tomorrow night. So, hey, don't fret. Yeah, some of y'all probably worried because you done bet on the game. But it's interesting that these political powers are going to give all their authority to the beast. And these will make war with the Lamb. Now, he's fast forward to chapter 19, verses 11 through 16, and verse 14. They will make war with the Lamb. The Lamb will overcome them, for he is the Lord of lords, King of kings, and those who are with him are called, chosen, and faithful. So what's going to happen? At the end of the tribulation period, nations are going to be rising against nations, be fighting against, some rebelling against Antichrist. And here's Jesus Christ. Boom! Heavens open up, sky opens up, and here Jesus comes with you and me, the church, the saints of God, to fight the battle of Armageddon. And when they see Jesus coming out of the sky, those that are fighting one another are going to join ranks and shake hands and fight us. But they're going to lose. So I'm not as sure about Georgia, but I'm sure about Jesus. Georgia may lose, but I'm sure Jesus won't lose. They're going to fight against the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them. He'll be victorious. And then he said to me, the water which you saw, where the harlot sit of peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues, and the 10 horns which you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot, and make her desolate, and naked, and eat her flesh, burn her with fire. Now what's going to happen is this. What he's trying to tell you is this. At the middle of the tribulation period, 7 years, right? At the middle of the tribulation period, okay? Now watch this now. Satan is a shrewd individual. He's not a victim of somebody. Satan is an intelligent, highly intelligent person. Highly intelligent being. Shrewd. He's going to get people to worship the harlot. But notice, but that worship's going to be false because what she's teaching is false. But Satan's goal has always been for people to worship him. So at the middle of the week, when the Antichrist resurrects from this deadness, his death, he's going to declare he's God. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 says he's going to sit in the temple and proclaim, I am God. And you can't have two rival gods occupying the same throne. So what he's going to do, he's going to destroy the false church. Why? So people can worship him and him alone. But watch this now. Don't miss this. Look what it says. I'm reading. Verse 17. For God has put. Y'all see that? God has put it into their hearts to do what? to fulfill his purpose. So everything that's happening during the tribulation period is fulfilling God's plan for man. Nothing is taking God by surprise. God says, I am doing this. I am using them to perform my purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, even though Satan is a powerful being, he ain't all powerful. Even though Satan is a smart being, he's not omniscient. Even though Satan is a wise being, he's not omnisapient. He is still a creature fulfilling God's purpose. Sometimes when Satan beat the hell out of us, that's fulfilling God's purpose too. Because sometimes you won't listen to God, it should knock you upside the head. God said they're fulfilling my purpose. Because see, what people are going to be asking is this: where's God in all this stuff? You know, people still asking, hey, Reed, tell me something. Where's God with all this mess going on? Where do you think he is? The way he's always been. They want to do something about this. Oh, he will. In time. Why he do it now? You saved? If you ain't saved but did it now, you're going to hell, man. God giving you a chance to repent. See, God has a bigger purpose than what you and I got. He uses adversity. He uses problems. Listen to me very carefully. That person that gave you hell on your job, that ain't speaking to you, that don't like you, that lied on you, talked about you, and you mad, and you won't speak to them because they don't speak to you. Don't you know that God using that person to fulfill a greater purpose in your life? No, I'm not telling you to go up and hug them. I'm just telling you to understand there's a greater purpose. You say you love the Lord. I know the Lord. Yeah, I love the Lord. I know the Lord. But then you really cuss somebody back out. People go, that's the Lord you know? God has a purpose. God has put it, notice what it says. He's put it into their hearts to fulfill his purpose, to be of one mind and to give their kingdom to the beast until his words are fulfilled. God said, you don't want me? You didn't want my son? You didn't want Jesus Christus? I'm going to give you the beast. He's going to look like he came from me, but he come from hell. Oh, yeah, he's going to woo you. You know, like some woman married a dude she thought was everything. He was all this in a bag of chips until she married him. Then she found out he may be the son of perdition. That's pretty bad, ain't it, Reverend? I've seen some guys like that. I mean, it's oh sweet pie, honey. I told a fella years ago, Evelyn and I was at a restaurant here in Macon, and this couple, they don't call the name, you'll know if I did, so I never call the name. They're not here anymore. And they was talking, it was at Cracker Barrel, and boy, they was eating ice cream and apple peach cobbler. And she was just going, hey, sweetie. You know what I mean? He said, oh, baby. I mean, I tell you, boy, they had the words going on. And I'm sitting there listening, watching. And so, after the meal, we went outside, and he and I kind of walking together. And Evelyn girl was talking, going toward the car. And I said to him, I said, sir, I want to shake your hand. He said, why you want to shake my hand, Rip? Because I never thought I'd see the day. Well, I see a man that'll tame her. Then he said, Rip, that woman fight like a man. We be rolling all over the house. I said, man, I'd have never known that the way you were talking. Y'all would do it. Sweetie pie, sugar wooger, and, you know, I'm in love with you. And he take a little bit of ice cream and feed it to her. You know, like the groom get the bride some cake, and he don't eat all of it. He just bite a piece of it. She bite it all. God's word going to be fulfilled. And the woman which you saw is a great city, which reigns over the kings of the earth. So what do we take away from this today? First thing we do is you got to understand something is find the truth and stay with it. Secondly, if the truth is not where the crowd is going, don't you go. All right. If the truth is behind a hog pen and false teaching is in a cathedral, you go behind the hog pen. Because the devil will lure you away from the truth with something marvelous and beautiful. And you'll think this is the best thing since Oreo cookie. And you'll find it's the worst thing that can ever happen to you. Stay with God. Stay with the truth. And as a pastor of Aletheia Baptist Church, I'll say to any member of this church, if there comes a time in this ministry where this preacher here stop preaching the truth, find you another church. I don't deserve you as my member. And I say that heartfelt. I don't deserve you as a member. Because I violated one of the tenets of the command. Paul tells us, don't go beyond the scriptures. Don't go beyond the scriptures. Stay away from false teaching.